Hi, I'm Pratim Ranjan Bose, and you are watching Podcast with Pratim, presented by Iravati Research and Communication Center, or IRCC. In this episode, we will discuss Israel and allied issues. I have with me retired Ambassador Sri Anil Trigunayat. He is an expert on the Middle East affairs. Thank you, sir, for
Namaskar.
coming.
Namaskar, Pratimji. Thank you.
Sir, why Netanyahu suddenly resumed attack on Gaza with such ferocity? The top leadership of Hamas and Hezbollah are already killed. What was the purpose of this attack, and that too during peace negotiation? Is it merely to protect his position in domestic politics? Over to you, sir.
Well, I think that there are many factors, but the ground reality is that Netanyahu did not want to stop this war until he has achieved all his objectives. And one of the key objectives is the decimation or destruction of completely and utterly political, uh, military, and its economic support system of Hamas. So that's his main objective, which he is trying to achieve at least since the time that October 7 happened. So October 7, in fact, gave him a pretext, pretext rather, to continue in power. And as you mentioned, that is it save himself? Yes, of course. Everybody who's following Israeli politics understands that he is also sitting on a lion, and if he goes down, lion will eat him up. The lion is uh, the system in the state of Israel, even though they don't have a written constitution. But the fact remains is that he's facing corruption charges. He's facing several other charges against him, besides the ignominy of October 7th itself. Now, what he has done is he's again accused and fired his Shin Bet, the Internal Security Agency chief, of plotting against him, because there are different kind of voices within the country which are uh, asking essentially for continuation of this ceasefire, the dialogue, and release of the hostages, which is the main and most important thing for most people. But there are these polls that suggest that it has not impacted his political position at all. In fact, more than half the people support going after Hamas and completely finishing this. Secondly, now he's very much emboldened because I believe that the last ceasefire on 16 January was essentially under the threats of President Trump, who wanted to prove that he can end the war, any war, and he had threatened Hamas as well as Netanyahu to some extent, saying that he wants the deal, ceasefire deal, and that's why you got the ceasefire deal before he entered the White House. So there is this was, in my view, was a convenient way of getting some of the prisoners and hostages released, and then move forward, continue what he does best, pounding the place. And he came up with a bright idea along with Trump. And Trump is in the real estate. So he said he would like to take over Gaza and convert it into a beautiful, beautiful place for people. Now, in which Gazans or the Palestinians are not supposed to be there, even though it is their land. So he wanted Israel and Jordan to take all these people, 2 million of Gazans, refugees, so that he can build this beautiful place. Now, that is something that backfired. Backfired in the sense is the Arabs also woke up. They have been sitting quietly so far. Nobody was coming up how to build, reconstruct, what to do with this. Statements are plenty from everybody in the world is talking about giving statements, but nobody has taken any action. Multilateral organizations are zilch completely. They have not been able to exercise any influence. And with utter impunity, Israel, or for that matter, Netanyahu in person, continues to do what he does, whether it is ICJ accuses him or ICC issues an arrest warrant, he cares two hoots for anyone. So his objective is clearly the decimation of Hamas. And it is emboldened, basically, and they have really redeemed by doing what? As you also mentioned, by killing the top leadership of Hezbollah in the first place in a sterling manner. So kudos to their intelligence agencies and also Hamas. So there is real no leadership. But in these kind of movements, leaderships come from the grassroots. And that's what precisely is happening. The US intelligence, CIA reports clearly indicate that the more people die, the more are recruited. So this is something that is not going to end so quickly. And Netanyahu says that you release all the hostages today without any condition, precondition. Now, a ceasefire was agreed, which was supposed to be in three phases. The first phase happened nicely, even though there were some problems, accusations, everything. But then with the Americans, he forced them not to go ahead with the second phase because that will mean that he has to move out of Gaza. And he doesn't want to leave it Gaza to the Egyptians and Jordanians and the Saudis, where they will bring about the Palestinian Authority or the Hamas back into power. So he wants to retain the security of the place himself, if not fully. So now he's saying that if these remaining 59 hostages are not released, then he'll annex Gaza completely. So we are here at that position. So, and as far as you mentioned, Ramadan, unfortunately, all these wars that have happened in the recent past between Hamas and this have been happening during the Ramadan period. They do the violations of the Al-Aqsa Mosque are also most witnessed during this period. So this is a willful thing that is happening. It is not something that happened just because the another party refused to concede. Another party is saying that once we have an agreement, let's follow the agreement. Now that is the thing. If you don't want to follow the agreement, you can do what you please.
In fact, 2 weeks ago, that was just when this Qatar talks had began. So I had a guest from Israel, a geopolitical researcher, Nina Slama, and she said that the talks were, of course, was happening behind the closed doors. So she said that long-term peace is not possible till Hamas has military capabilities. Now, I don't know what it means, but obviously at the same time, if you just pound and pound and pound, so either you have to annihilate it, or everyone has to agree, or as you were saying, or as all reports say, that there will be more ideological attraction to this. So, do you think, there
You
is
see,
no
I,
end to it?
I, I have a great regard for Nina Slama. She is one of the finest, analysts in Israel and a good friend of mine. The thing is that there is a fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is also the issue of two-state solution, issue of Palestine. Now you can't put that under the carpet and then you think that this should not happen or that should not happen. We have seen all along, even the PLO of Yasser Arafat was termed as a terrorist organization, right? Then the Americans, down to everybody else, started working with them. And then the Hamas was created out of the Intifada that happened in 87 and all this. Netanyahu himself has been supporting them. And they survived because of his support. So, because it kept the Palestinian uh, resistance movement divided. And Hamas and Palestinians were never not coming together because Hamas thought that they were being cheated out of the power. And that's why they all of them have this particular thing that they want Israel to exist. That is unacceptable by anybody. Use of terrorism is unacceptable. But then what next? And you have seen it in the region. The biggest and the mightiest force is that of Israel. There's no doubt about it, right? It's a nuclear country as well. Some of its ministers say nuke the place. Now this guy Ben Gvir is back in the parliament, back in the cabinet. He had left when the ceasefire agreement was signed under pressure from Trump, but he has come back after 2 months again. Because he doesn't want any ceasefire. He doesn't want to yield anything to the Palestinians. So either you think that the Palestinians can be mowed like grass and nobody will utter a word. Yes, today that is the problem. And that is the situation. So it has to be some kind of a holistic approach. But that holistic approach can only begin when you have a credible ceasefire. And so, of course, from the security point of view, mindedness, if you are going to think of it, then Israel is right. It wants to finish off Hamas. But can it? Is it possible? Americans were there for 20 years in Afghanistan fighting Taliban, which they treated as terrorists, and eventually gave power back to them. We have seen in what happened in Gaza itself in 2006. The Israeli government had to leave Gaza because there was people were not with them. So today, 2 million people, you want to kill them, then it's a different thing altogether. But at the same time, there should be an effort to find a solution. But nobody is working on a solution. Everybody is trying to work on these patchwork kind of a thing, knowing too well that the longer the war goes on, the longer Mr. Netanyahu secures his seat. And this war has actually brought back his popularity, become quite intact in that sense.
Right. War has tremendous political gains in the past to many people, but sometimes it also
Yes,
backfired, as we have seen in US.
yes.
Sir,
So it will backfire. I mean, it is not something that is going to be ordinary people. Ordinary Israelis are living in fear. So um, uh, the Palestinians have lost, but so have the Israelis. Ordinary people suffer in the bargain.
right. Sir, how are Qataris, Saudi, and other important countries in um, Middle East are looking at it?
Well, all of them have condemned it. That is the official position of each one. But today you can't avoid something which is US factor. Trump factor is very uncertain and it is impinging on everyone in different manner. So more and more, like Saudi Arabia is playing a very big role now in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. UAE is playing a good role between Iran and US. And Qatar is playing, along with Egypt, a big role in bringing about the ceasefire and also with Afghanistan and other places. So all these three major powers of the Middle East have identified their own role in the basically in Trump's eyes. So that because Trump is very important. Now we know the Saudi National Security Advisor was there recently, and UAE National Security Advisor was there. Mohammed bin Salman spoke and said that we are going to invest $500 billion in the US. They are getting more new equipment. Mr. Tahanun said the National Security Advisor of UAE just yesterday mentioned they are going to invest $1.4 trillion. Then the Qataris are also doing the same. So I think that all these oil-rich sheikdoms are looking at their own interest in the first place. But Saudi Arabia has taken the lead in implementing a two-state solution, for which all of them, the whole of Arab League, the OIC, whether it's Turkey or whether Iran included, are there for this purpose. They say that there should be a two-state solution. How it will happen, what kind of a two-state solution, and much water has flown down the Jordan River, so you don't know exactly
So
what kind of a two-state solution.
therefore, the division between themselves, the differences within these players, that is what is keeping Netanyahu ticking. Is that the case?
No, Netanyahu is ticking because of
Your
not
support
because
is,
of
of
them,
course,
because of the US. That's simple. I mean, there's nothing else. Many people tell me now that my Israeli friends tell me, oh, these Arabs behind the doors tell us that you did the right thing by killing Hamas and killing this and that. But then they did not think that, okay, they are going to face the music because Trump is going to evict all these fellows and Palestinians and they'll become their immediate headache. Right. So then they realize when it shuts you in the face, then you realize that what is happening. So I believe that currently the Netanyahu is emboldened because see his victories on the war front against all his people. I mean, he has been fighting with each one simultaneously. He is still attacking yesterday again. You saw what happened in Lebanon. He is still fighting the Houthis. He's still fighting the Hamas, and also taking on Iran. So how it is happening? It is not happening because of this. But you're absolutely right that the countries in the region do have their internal differences. They do have their hesitations of power against the other or the hang-ups of the past. But at the same time, there is an underlying, I would say, desire for especially the Islamic world to in the Middle East to come together and try to resolve their problems because they each one is going to be impacted very badly by that. Of course, India will be impacted if the war escalates. So, in my view, the war will stop if President Trump wants it to stop. As simple as that.
Right. So how is President Trump looking at it? He said he will stop the war,
For
and
the
then
moment, for the moment, President Trump, Trump's envoy, special envoy Witkoff, is still very much part of the negotiations for a ceasefire. He has been trying to extend the first phase of the ceasefire to 60 days to cover the Ramadan. But the Hamas did not agree because they say that we should agree to what we agreed in the beginning. Why should we in the middle change the tracks? So that has been there, which is a legitimate thing. I mean, you don't want to go to second phase or third phase, so that means there will be no peace. And once all the according to them, if the hostages are released, they have no other thing to negotiate with. So that is something there, and no other power, whether it is in the Middle East or outside, Europeans or China or for that matter India, have the power to really stop this war. Only America has that power.
so I think, don't you think that finally America has to play a little, I mean, geopolitically, this is very interesting phase also. We don't have, well, UN was toothless, we all know, but now it is probably, it have lost every tooth, whatever trace of tooth it had, and the UN bodies, the multilateral bodies, WTO, everything has gone right now. So there is a vacuum, and also which is facilitating. So US has to come a little clean about this. It has been going on a bit too far, probably.
Well, I think that it is in their interest because see, U.S. has basic foreign policy objective. The United States is security of Israel in the region. That is one
Right.
of the main important things. Earlier, it used to be oil and all the supplies are no longer valid. But what is most important is they don't want the Chinese influence increasing in the region and try to have the security of Israel ensured. That's the basic fundamental. But at the same time, that can only happen if the rest of their clients are also somewhat happy, which is what they've been trying to do so far. So that's how they're planning to pressure Iran into submission. Iran might agree to have some kind of talks on the nuclear deal or something like that, which Israel also doesn't want it because they don't want parity with Iran as far as the nuclear file is concerned. So that's the one reason that they might go ahead and do something but that will only happen if President Trump wants. So there have been some of the Atlantic, you know, they have some papers I read recently by Heritage Foundation, which is very Republican close, and they have also come up with new proposals, thinking that there should be necessary to contain this unlimited power to act. So I'm quite sure that once President Trump gets convinced that this particular phase is not yielding what they are looking for, then I'm quite sure that he'll put his foot down.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you.